Okay. So I'm gonna have to have my phone here as well so that I can record this audio while I am doing this as well. So I have like 3 things in my hand, but that's okay. All right, let me do one sound check real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whoops, went too far. Okay, I just need that to sync up the audio when I put it together. Okay, C is actually fun. So, first things first, C is actually not as scary as you all would think it'd be. You got so many different symbols in C. You got those curly brackets, you got those semicolons, you've got those functions that have a bunch of underscores into it as well. It looks scary, but it's actually not too scary because, what did I put as it? Because C is actually a bunch of little tiny creatures that are inching along this little flat rock full of electricity that you call a computer. So when you start to overcome the fear of C, that's when things start to become a little bit more understandable, because C is actually dumb as shit. C is so dumb that it doesn't know the difference between a number and a letter. C is so dumb that it needs parentheses to even see things. C is so dumb, you need a semicolon to make it even stop thinking. So why do I always need these symbols? Why do I have to identify an integer or a character? It's because C is dumb and you need to tell it what it is, or else it's never going to know what to do. C is also actually like a Lego project. So every single bit of code in C is built from the ground up. You've got your foundation, you've got the things that you want it to do, and it just keeps building and building from the ground up. So as long as you think about it as separate blocks, sorry, that was flipped the wrong way. As long as you think about it as separate blocks, it becomes a little bit easier to break up. So here's how my brain works. These are the Lego blocks. I called them tamas, based off of the Gudetama egg, if anyone knew about that. So these are creatures that make sense to me and how I think about code whenever it comes through. So tamas are based off the Gudetama, and they are one thought creatures. So their capacity is so small, they can only really hold on to one thought. So the way that tamas work is that they work with other tamas, and each one has a role. Your job is to put all of them within line, have your little ant farm basically come together in order to take these tiny little stupid creatures, and with your own guidance, it can make the Mars rover run. So that's like a bunch of stuff. So let's go ahead and go over some code with the tamas that I have. So we've got the print alphabet problem from the second project of the previous one. So the previous project of the third, doesn't matter. It's a problem that we've already done before. So first things first, we always want to look at the problem. We've got 2 different things. We want to know what our objective is, and we want to know what our restrictions are. Objective, you want to print the entire alphabet in lowercase, followed by a new line. Those are 3 things that we have to keep into account. And then your restrictions are that you have to use the prototype, the void print alphabet, and you can only use put character. So put character is a little interesting because it's something that that Holberton themselves wrote in order to make these problems a little bit more difficult. Because if we were to just use printf, we could just printf the entire alphabet, and then it's not hard. So when they have put character, they want you to put a variable within it in order to expand upon it. And I will show you when we use that in just a sec. So first, before we go over the code, I want to go over our header file. So our header file is basically what you tell the code that it exists. So when we have a prototype, if you see void print alphabet, void, we've got that right up there too. This is actually has all of the prototypes within it, because once again, C is so dumb, it doesn't even know that these exist unless you put them in the header file. So whenever you have int main, that's what it expects. If you don't have int main, you have to define it within your header file. It always has to start like this, indef header, define header, and it always has to end. You can't see it, but it's #endif. As your header file should already have, but that's just to explain the header file a little bit better. So now here is the answer to this problem. So if we look, we've got multiple sections to it. First one, we have our include. Include up here, this little comma is the factory comma. He makes sure that everything is in the right factory. C doesn't even know what the heck to do yet unless you have a header file that says, hey, you can start working now. So this little guy, which is our hashtag include, makes sure that it includes the main header file. Now, if you remember from some previous ones, we also had one that had stdio. That one was to include standard input, which means it didn't even know that it could print English, basically. So when we had printf, you had to include that, or else it won't even know that it's speaking English. So once again, C is really dumb. You need to have these things, or else it doesn't know what the fuck it's talking about. So this guy always has to be here. He always has to include the header file, at least. And then, let's go down here. I can go over descriptions in a little bit, but I'd like to go through mostly the code of it. This guy, I like to call him a little lifeguard. He is the function. So what we've got here, the void, print alphabet, void, that's him. So with this, and we'll go over some more when this is not void and when this is not void as well. So for right now, with these void, he is print alphabet. If we look back over here, we see that this checker is going to ask for print alphabet, which once again is the name of here. So once we have this guy who is looking over the entire code below, we've got curly brackets. And curly brackets are little dudes that hold everything together. They've got a scroll that holds everything within the curly brackets and sticks them all together, because it's not going to know what's going on with print alphabet unless you have curly brackets that stick them all together. Because once again, C is dumb. It doesn't even know the thing that's right after it is the thing it needs to be looking for. It needs to find those curly brackets to make that happen. Second, we've got a declaration. So we have character C. This little comma, his only job is to say that this exists. Hey guys, by the way, this variable C, it's a character. It's not a letter. It's not a symbol. It's a character. That's all that he does. So afterwards, we've got the semicolon right after it. Now, if you remember before, C needs to know when to stop thinking. So that's why you need a semicolon right after the declaration, so Mr. Declaration Man knows that he doesn't need to keep declaring stuff. Now he knows he can stop thinking. So now, if we go down to the loops, basically. So right here we have a loop man. Loop man, his only job is to check if this condition is true or false. True or false, that's why he's red and green. So he'll raise up a flag saying that this statement is true, or he'll raise up the red flag, which means that it is not true. So now let's look at this statement, which also we're going to go a little bit over for loops. For loops are very much like while loops. It just almost like puts them all together. So if you remember when you do a while loop, let's say that it's like x greater than or equal to 10. And then when you're at the end of that, you wanted to increment it by 1. With a for loop, it does that all for you. It states what the variable is, it states the while condition, and then it increments at the end of it. So it does all of that in one loop, instead of putting it in different places in the code in order to make that happen. Sometimes you do need a while loop, because sometimes you want to increment it in a different spot. But for, if you know you need to state a variable, and if you know that you're going to increment at the end of this loop, then it's best to use a for loop. So once again, we've got parentheses. So we've got the for loop that has no idea what the heck it's talking about unless you put it within parentheses. If you're ever unsure if it can read what you're looking at, put in parentheses. If it does not want parentheses, Betty will tell you. Okay, so right here, like I said, this is a declaration. Not a declaration, it gives an assignment. That's the word for it, assignment. So this guy already said that C exists, basically, and it's going to be a letter. Now this guy over here needs to hold on to that information. C equals lowercase a. Now that guy's gonna hold on to that information, and any time that it asks for C, he's gonna run on down there in order to place whatever is in that box in the place that asks for C. Once again, we've got the curly brackets, so we know that we want the for loop. Everything within it is going to happen. Here is put character. This guy is awaiting a one input thing in order to expand upon it. So like with our variable, C is going to equal A. He's going to come and run down. Yep, that's right. He's going to come and run down and put that C in there. So he's going to put this box in his belly, and he's going to go blah, 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 and then spit out whatever is the answer to that. And once again, we've got our semicolons to tell it to stop thinking. You don't have to put anything else, so stop thinking that you need to put something else in. And then we've got another put character down here, which is going to be a new line. Now, if we go back over here again to see what our objectives were. If you can remember, we wanted to make sure it prints the alphabet in lowercase, followed by a new line. This is an example of what it wants your code to do. So it wants you to do A through Z and then a new line, not one after each one, exactly like that. So if we think about it, start with here. This is what it's going to ask for. Hey, by the way, I want to do print alphabet. Okay, everything within print alphabet is going to happen. Curly brackets, declare, and we got our loop. So C is going to be A, put down A. We're going to loop it back around because it's within the curly brackets. Is it less than or equal to Z? Yes, it is. So it's going to put the next one, B. And I forgot to say that it's after, at the end of the curly brackets, it's going to do plus plus C. Now, usually we were doing plus plus to do numbers. Excuse me. But I realize that oh yes, go ahead.
Is C++ and plus plus C the same?
They are actually different. So I would actually usually do C++, but I did for this code just plus plus C. The difference between it, and I'm still not 100% sure when it comes into play. This type of C is going to do a plus before, actually it's going to do a plus before it ends up running through the function.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I'm sure they're going to bring that up more. So basically, this one is like before it asks for it, and this is after it asks for it.
Yeah, it's one of those hard thoughts.
It's one of those hard thoughts, so I'm sure we'll get to that part a little bit different. But there is a difference, and that's what needs to be considered. Make sure I go through all of it. Yeah, so once again, with a loop, it is exactly as it sounds. It's going to keep going, and keep going until it is no longer less than or equal to Z. What's after it? I'm not entirely sure. I think it's capital A, but it's no longer that. So it's going to stop this loop. It's no longer happening because this is not the case. He's putting up his red flag because he's like, hey, this is no longer the case anymore. And now we break out of this loop and go on to here, which is put character, new line. So that means when you put that all together, it's going to come out exactly like that. And so that was basically an introduction to the Tamas. Now we're going to show a little bit different on the print alphabet times 10.
Okay, can I ask one question?
Yes, go for it.
What is the purpose of a new line?
So whenever I believe it's just clarity, but if we did not put in the new line, this right here is going to be right after it.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's going to put this up to it. Once it's Z, this J is going to come immediately after, like that. So mostly for readability, and so that you can actually see the answer clearly.
Okay, so without the new line, it will start to print, for example, right on that same line.
Exactly. So when it's like asking for your new root, it will be on that same exact line instead of just like one line dedicated to the answer.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Print alphabet. Good, there you go. So this one is very similar. Once again, we want to look at the problem, objectives and restrictions. Print the alphabet in lowercase followed by a new line 10 times. So we're basically doing the same thing except 10 times. But the other restriction is that we can only put character twice. So if we were to take our code from before and try to do it again and just copy it 10 times, we end up having like 20 put characters. So how do we do that with loops? So this is the answer for that. Step aside a second. And after you're done looking, let's go ahead and go through it with our commas. So we've got our includer. It came through. So we've got our factory comma, making sure that that everything below it knows that it needs to include this within its thinking. It does not know anything else unless you compile it together with the GCC or if you include. Otherwise, it has no idea where anything else is because they're dumb as shit. All right, down here again, we got our lifeguard, same exact thing. Now this time around, we've got two declarations, character C and integer X. Integer means number, if anyone did not know that integer means number. So the only difference between this is that we're going to want to have a little comma keep a tick, basically. It's going to keep an eye on how many times a number goes up. So we have the semicolon to stop them thinking. We have this guy right here that is going to hold on to this information. X is going to equal 1. And once again, if you remember from before, where is he? There he is. That he's going to come on down and put X wherever it wants to be. So it's going to hold on to that X anytime that X comes to be. So we've got this loop, X less than or equal to 10. While that is true, the things in the curly brackets are going to happen. Did not put the curly brackets, guy. And then if you see right here, everything looks very similar. So it's just like as it was before. This person is asking for C. We know that character is C. He's going to hold on to that A, and he's going to run around until we get into the final bit of the alphabet. Now we're coming down here, and we've got our new line, but now we want to do that 9 more times. Now, if you see down here, we've got our increment, and this guy up here that was holding on to the X before, he's going to come on down here, and he's like, oh, I need to add 1 to my X. So once he's done that, he's going to run back up here again and plug it back into X again. Is this true or false? It's still true. So it's going to happen again, and then again, and then again, until it is no longer, until it becomes 11, because we have it less than or equal to 10. So once this guy brings up the answer 11, then this is going to stop. Now, what I always recommend is to really try your code. So whenever the checker gives you this integer main right here where it's going to ask to print your code, I would say make that file and copy it. And if you look underneath, I'm about to burp. There we go. It's going to ask, when the checker uses your code, it's going to compile the put character code, which Holberton made to make this harder. It's going to have, I know it's a little cut off there for a second, but it's also going to have the main file that it has named here. They are calling it 2-main-C, if you see at the very top. So you'll copy all of that and put it in and call it the same thing. And if you just copy this, then it will give you exactly what the checker is going to be checking as well. As long as you have those files within it, it should be accurate. Yes?
I needed this last week.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Question.
Yeah.
It might be a silly one.
No.
Double parentheses. Why are you? Is it because you're ending with that, or is
So-
it separate?
When I wrote this, I used double parentheses. I realized that C does not need double parentheses. I did that because that's how it was in Bash earlier. So far, there doesn't seem to be a difference between the double and the single, but I cannot say for 100% sure that it's not going to be important. Either way, this ended up working, but single parentheses will work too. So it was just mostly like a quirk of my code there. Make sure I'm going, all the stuff. So when we're looking at this, it hurts your brain a little bit. You got all these dudes working around and you have no idea where and what is supposed to be where. So let's think about it like this. Our curly brackets are godsends. So we've got the curly brackets for our entire function. That means everything within this box is going to happen when it asks for it within our checker. Next, we've got this loop, and everything in this loop is going to happen while this is still true. And then we got another loop. This is what they were talking about with nested loops. We've got another loop that's going to happen until it's no longer false. So once this is false, it's going to come back out into here, and once this happens, it's going to come out of that box. So it's almost like a Russian nesting dolls of loops, codes, loops and codes, yeah. So try to think about it as a Russian nesting doll, not linear. It's not going to be like do this, and then this, and then this, and then this. No, it's going to do this, and then do that, and then do that, and then it's going to come back out, and it's going to do it again. So there's a lot of curvature within your code. It's going to keep going around in different spots until your own code says that it no longer needs to happen. That's why we have this loop right here. So once it has reached the end, your checker and anything that's going to use your code knows that this entire function is over. It means everything within it is done. So as long as you think about it as Russian nesting dolls, it's a lot easier to kind of put your brain together instead of thinking of it as step by step by step. So let's go to a little bit different problem. We have the is lower problem. Now this one involves the return. Dun, dun, dun. So this time we're going to take a look at our problem. We want to write a function that checks for lowercase characters. Our prototype, int underscore, is lower, and then we've got int c. So unlike our other prototypes that had void and void, we've got int in front of it and int c at the end of it. What do those mean? So let's still look at what our problem is. We want the prototype, and we want to return 1 if the variable is lowercase, and return 0 otherwise. Now, if we take a look at our problem, this is what's going to ask this is what it's going to ask our code when they run it. It's going to ask, is h lowercase, is o lowercase, and if 108 is lowercase. And if you see down here, it's going to spit out that answer if your code is correct, which is going to be 0, 1, 1. Hold on, why is 108 1? Doesn't matter, we'll go over that. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the code. Yes?
Is the ASCII number and not like the actual number?
Yeah, so I think
ASCII is
108 would translate to a letter, right?
yes, you were totally right. I forgot about, I'm going to go over those ACSII characters as well.
But
Yeah.
because it doesn't have the single quotations around it,
Mhm.
it's not saying it's a literal number, it's saying it's the ASCII number.
You got that. Nice. Yeah, okay. Totally makes sense. I got that now. Yeah, so we'll go over the ACSII characters, which basically assigns a number to every symbol that's possible, including uppercase and lowercase, parentheses, semicolons, and all that fancy stuff. I always recommend having that page bookmarked because sometimes you're going to want to put in a semicolon and it doesn't want you to put in a semicolon because it's just mad at you. So instead you have to put the number that assigns along with it. So let's go ahead and look at our code. So just like before, we're always going to need a factory man and we're always going to need a lifeguard to look over our function. There we go. So the difference between this one is that we've got an if statement down here. If statement and a double and sign. So a little different. Let's go ahead and go through it. So our function is different. The biggest thing is this at the end. This is integer c. It is asking for integer c from someplace out of the code. So our intention, when it comes over here, Yeah, it says C. So when it asks for something over here, it's going to plug that in over into this code right here and put that answer into the basket. What is C? Don't worry, this guy will bring it over and put it in the basket. So you want to have whatever their integer is, which is going to be H, O, and 108. He's going to run over here with that info, put it in the basket, and then anytime that it asks for C, it will grab whatever info came from the previous code, not previous code, from the checker, and plug it in. So we've got our loop here, and here he comes to plug in C. So whatever that's going to be, we don't know. So we can't set it up to always be that case unless we make sure that it will always be the case. So here's the if statement. If C is greater or equal to lowercase a, and if C is lower or equal to lowercase z, then we want it to return 1. Just like it said before, it wants to return 1. Now, return is what is associated with this int at the beginning. So when it's at the beginning, it's going to say that whatever comes out of this code will be a number. So we've got, yeah, there he is. So this is our return guy. He just sits there. He just sits there with a box of whenever they want to, they're both going to be sitting there. So whenever they say, hey, get moving, dude, he's going to run over with the answer. So return 1 and return 0. This will only happen if this is true. So if this is true and gives the green signal, he's going to be like, oh shit, I got to get over there. And then he brings the number 1 and puts it within the code. Same with this guy. If this is not true, this guy holding the 0 is going to be like, oh, they're asking for me. I'll go ahead and go and put 0 down there then. Whoop, yeah. Yeah, so that is sort of how the return person works. Return, it does not involve this. This is something separate. Return involves the thing at the beginning. If we have int at the beginning, it will have a return. If we have this at the beginning, that means we're going to get, at the end, if we have integer c at the end, that means it's going to, oh, I lost my train of thought for a second. That means it's going to need information outside of the code.
Okay.
Got it? All right. All right, so let's go on to a little harder one. The print last digit problem.
Int needs return.
Yep, int means return. And then we've got another int at the end here too. So prototype, int, print last digit, int. So we're going to have two things. The int at the end means that it's going to ask for an integer, but we don't know what that is until we declare it ourselves. So here is the answer to that. I decided to use int r because we've got over here int r. So when it wants r, it's going to plug it back over into here. Only because that's what it wants us to do. That's not how I would have done it if I had free reign, but that's what it wants us to do. That's the biggest thing. This is why I say it's like Lego blocks in building. That's why it's like Lego blocks in building, because you're just trying to get at it piece by piece with different objectives and different restrictions. Sometimes you're like, why do I have to do it this way? Because someday you are going to have to do it that way. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this code is. So I'll explain why it's like this. It's a little difficult. I only found this on Google, actually. This is almost like a little bit of a math problem. So we've got our normal people, our factory man, and our lifeguard. We've got our basket that we want. He's going to bring that over and put that in there when needed. So I went ahead and did integer last. That's what I decided to name it, just because. So you can name it whatever the heck you want. It could be one character. It can be the entire Declaration of Independence if you wanted to, but I don't think that'd be good for readability. So, make sure, yeah. So I'm calling it last. And the reason behind that is that we see up here that this wants the return to be the last digit. So whatever the last digit is, it wants that number to be returned. So that's something that we have to think of. It's not going to return 1, it's not going to return 0, it's going to return a specific number. How do we make that happen? How do we make it do the last digit?
I want to explain.
You want to explain it?
No, go ahead.
All right. I have a system. So the way that this works, we've got our parenthesis sign here, and if we remember, parenthesis sign is not division. Parenthesis sign is asking for a remainder. So I ended up doing last equals whatever the number is divided by remainder 10. So it's going to put 10 in as many times as possible and spit out the remainder. Now if we know, and remember, if you divide something by 10, whatever the remainder is going to be the last number. So like with 98, it's going to go into it 9 times, but it can't go into the 8, so it's going to just spit out the 8. For 1024, negative 1024, it's going to go into it 102 times, but it's going to spit out a 4 at the end.
What happens if it's a 2?
If it's a 2, it's just going to spit out a 2 because it's going to be the last digit. It will go into 10 0 times and then spit out 2.
I don't know why that like didn't compute. It was like I thought it had to be a 0.2 or something like that. I was like,
Now if we see that this is not just all that we've got in our code. We've got this over here too. We have something that is being checked a negative number. When it spits out the number, we don't want the number to be negative. So we have an if statement over here. If the integer last, which is going to be r divided by 10, is less than 0, i.e. is a negative number, then we're going to times it by negative 1. If anyone remembers math, if you times a negative number by a negative, it will turn positive. And if you times a number by 1, it's going to be the same exact thing. So if we times it by negative 1, that means it's just going to flip it to positive. This is just a little way to get around it if it's a negative number. So if this is not the case, then we're just going to go ahead and print the number because we don't need to fuck around if it's not a negative number. Yep, so let me bring out my dudes, my friends. So he's bringing down last over here. He is having this information. He brought down last, and then we are doing last times negative 1. So now he has that new info, and he's bringing it down here to put character in order to make that happen. Now, if you see over here, we've got a plus 0. Why the heck do we have a plus 0? Well, if we go back again, C is dumb as shit. With put character, the way that it is working out, for some reason, I'm not exactly sure, if you just have the integer, it does not know if it's a character or a number. In fact, if it is a number, it yells at you because it's like, hey, what the heck? This is put character, not put number. So if you were actually put a plus 0, he's like, oh, that's actually a number, isn't it? Since you're adding something to it, it has to be a number. For some reason, that is just why put character works. And that's what you're going to come across and see a lot as well. It's just some reason that works. Yes.
So you're saying it's not only dumb, it's retarded.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay, so how did you get that it needed to be positive from that? Like, when
Yes, so-
you say that it has to be positive.
Exactly. Good question. So if we look down here on our code of what it wants the answer to be. So we're going over, three things and then an additional one because of the way that it's put in the put character. So we want the last digit of 98, which is 8, last digit of 0, which is 0, and last digit of negative 1024. If we see that there's a 4 right after it, not a negative 4, a 4. So when it so based on the answer that the checker is expecting from you, I was able to figure out that it was going to be positive because if you just ran it without this, it's going to be 8, 0, negative 4, negative 4 twice because that's what it ends up doing at the end. I don't know why they do that little thing at the end of this code. I believe it's to make sure certain workarounds don't work.
What?
So down here, we've got the r equals print last number, and then it's got this put character 0 plus r, and then the new line. So it wants to take r again and print it. So it does this twice, basically. And I believe the reason for that is so that you can use put character properly. I'm still not entirely sure why it does it like that, but it does. Yep, so once again, we've got our return guy down here. He is waiting for the number. Except this time, this person's, I didn't actually draw this one. This guy's gonna come on down here and place that in his basket. He doesn't have anything in his basket. He knows he's just looking for something specific, which is last. So this guy's gonna come down, put that in there. Once again, this guy's gonna waddle on over and then print it out at the end. With our checker, it's asking us to do it like that. Any other questions for that one? Nope? All right, awesome. All right, so now let's try our own for this 24-hour problem. Now, if people remember, this one was a little bit of a doozy. It wanted you to do every single minute, every single hour from 0 to 24:59. 24, just 24? 24:59. I think it's just 24, yeah. So just 24.
It's actually like used to be my favorite show.
Yeah, until this project happens. Okay, so here I have a hint. So we've got a bunch of guys on this one. And this is kind of a bit how more standard code is. You're gonna have, whoops, that's dual. So we're gonna have a bunch of Tamas alongside this sort of code. And there's gonna be hundreds of them as we get farther around our programs. As long as we remember what their roles are and why they should work and how they should work, it usually comes a little bit easier because, like, once I said again, they're like Lego blocks. You just need to guide them along the right path because they're dumb little creatures. Now, my intention was for us to go through coding by itself, but if you would like me to just spit out the answer and then explain it, I can do that. Or we can try to figure it out ourselves. Spit, figure.
We do majority rule.
Got 2 spit, 1 figure.
Hands, spit.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. I'll go over just a little bit before I reveal the code, though, so we can think about what we're trying to think of while we're going through this. So that's my hint. So let's look at our problem. What's our objective, and what are our restrictions? So write a function. I actually got cut off a little bit. I just remember it. Write a function that prints every minute of the day, starting with 0, 0 up to number 24. We have our prototype, which is void, Jack Bauer, void. Now, with that, we immediately know that we're not going to have a return and that we are not going to be looking for an integer outside of the code. That means everything that it's asking for us is going to be within the code.
Something we supply.
Exactly. So, yeah, this is when my whiteboard comes into play. My hands got really sweaty.
Does anybody remember this show?
No.
The name of it?
No.
It's 24.
Oh, the show? Yeah.
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 The show was awesome.
No.
Okay, so here's the way that we want to think about it. We're going to have 0, 0, 0, 0. We have 5 spaces to think about when we are printing this. If you see, we actually got 6 of these dudes. That last dude is going to be the new line. So we want this to go up by 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then once it reaches 9, we want this one to tick over, just like a clock. And then once again, gets up and up and up until it gets to 59. Then we want this to tick over. And then go.
Why do you? Go ahead.
And then once it loops it again, it's going to make that to 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then 7. Wait. Does it go up that far? Yes. 9, 10, and then 11, 12, and then so once it gets up to 9, this is going to tick over. And this number over here has already looped about 80 times before it even gets up to a tick here. So we want to think about this in loops. We've got our first digit, which is going to be in its own loop. We've got our second digit, which is going to be in its own loop. We got our semicolon, which is always going to be there. Our third digit, which is going to be in its own loop. And then our fourth digit, which is going to be in its own loop.
Why can the last two not be in a loop by themselves? I mean, a loop together. Why can't you have 24 and 59? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. I'm trying to think about it real quick. The only thing is that I can't see it as a possible code
It would be like while
Be-
this is less than 64. Can you not do digits?
I think I know the biggest reason.
Well, that.
Oh, but actually that's not the reason when I put it like this.
Second digit wouldn't be able to take over.
Because if it goes up to 59, well, it could go back right down to 0.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it is a possibility then. Since we are not using put character, I think I actually did this with the intention of put character. But since we have print, since we have the ability to use printf, that was actually my shoe. Don't judge me. That was my shoe. That was my shoe. My shoes. So this could be in its own loop too, and I think this could also be in its own loop. I think it's just because I think I just had it with input character, which would only have accepted one variable at a time.
Okay.
Yeah. So with printf, I think that's very much possible. So whoop, I ended up going backwards. Whoopsies. So let's go ahead after we have this. So the rules are actually nothing. They don't care if you use put character. They don't care of anything. They just want this to be similar to this. So 1 minute at a time up to 24. And I cut off the bottom.
Sandbox and try it my way.
True. I
That'd be great.
Because I think just like
Let's do it.
not
Okay.
code is wrong.
let me go through what I ended up doing, and then we can do that. Okay. Little dudes around. Okay, so here's what I ended up getting. Yeah, see, I ended up using put character instead of print. So that actually could work much better if it is printf. Let me double check on that question as well. Make sure it doesn't state that at the end. Ignore.
Could anywhere in there totally mess up my plan.
Yeah.
'Cause I didn't get it done.
Yeah, because it's hard. It's really freaking hard.
So I am still working on last week's shed at some point. Oh, wait.
Whoa.
All the way up to the top.
Any use of the functions like printf is forbidden. But that worked on my first one.
Go to the task. It says
Yeah, I remember your
Yeah.
message was why lie to me?
Yes. Yes, that was my commit message because I was really upset about that because I racked my brain for so long for that. That's the next one.
yeah.
Yep. Oh, it doesn't even go up to 24. Whoops.
Run a function, it doesn't say that you can, right?
Yeah, so it does not say except at the very beginning, but I think that's actually
It says you
wrong.
can't at the beginning.
It says you can't at the beginning, but I had answers to it with printf.
Let me go back to it.
Yeah.
When it's looking for the checker,
Uh-huh.
it's got put char in the freaking.
You're right, it does right here. It's asking for it. So it probably wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So, in theory, yes.
Then most likely.
Exactly. If you can use printf, it should.
The code will probably work, but like you said.
It doesn't work as an answer to this question. but
Exactly, because
you
they,
could code it to work.
like they said, they made put car to make this more difficult because it would be so much easier
I
to.
read something that said that printf, there's something about printf that makes you more susceptible to being hacked. And people
Oh.
are trying to move away from it. Maybe this is why.
That might actually be part of it then. Who knows?
I don't know. I'll have to.
Yeah, but that was a very good question. So yes, in theory that should work, which means you're getting your brain encoding. Let's go. That means you're thinking like a coder. Yeah, basically yeah. Welcome. Let's get going. Let's go ahead and pull that back up. Yeah. There we go. I just didn't want to make each one go together. Okay, so with that in thought, no, that's totally good. I wanted to know that answer too. This is why I wanted this presentation, because I want people to ask questions I don't know yet. Yeah. Okay.
Where do
Yes.
babies come from?
That comes from your mother's vagina. I'm sorry. sorry, y'all. I'll just cut that part out. I'll just bleep myself. Okay.
I forgot this was being recorded.
Yeah, this is being recorded, and I'm gonna put that all together. Okay.
And people think I'm God. Guys think I'm God. My voice is so deep.
Yeah.
You're sitting behind you. Last night I heard the most disgusting story I've ever heard from you.
Oh no.
And it was this really good looking guy. Got in my car talking about his girls. One of my girls, I said, something about you got girls? And I said something about, you got more than one. And he said, yeah, that's because this one, but this other one, she likes to play. And I'm like, and the story went on, yeah.
Oh no.
That look right there.
Oh no.
And I just let him off at Hooters.
Yeah. For real. You going to the bathroom or something?
So there was, yes.
Okay, I can wait.
Yeah, I'm not just disgusted and throwing out.
No, just like, all right, mic drop, let's go. All right, we'll wait then. We can stare at this code while we do. Kind of get it in your brain a bit. My shoulders are starting to hurt because I'm in a weird angle holding my phone like this.
Yeah, do you think you can put it like on?
I don't know if it's gonna pick up, especially from. Shut up.
Or over there?
I'm afraid that a mic picking up from a speaker would cause some problems.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's my only hesitation, and this is my only voice recording of this. So if I don't have my voice to this, I'm gonna have to redo the whole thing, and I don't want to do that. I already had to do this whole thing too. I say had. I volunteered.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad, and then I want everyone else to be able to get it because everyone else has life. So people are just not able to attend for different reasons this Sunday. So who freaking knows? But yay, good. Because I want to make sure this is informative. And like I said, this is how my brain works. This is how I think about things. When you simplify it and think about it as dumb as it really is, it makes it a little bit more palatable. You're like, oh, I'm not the dumb one.
Well, you assume any kind of programming.
Exactly. It's very intimidating. Yeah. No, it's very intimidating. Yeah. And like I said, there's so many different symbols and things. You got abbreviations of things, and you're like, what the heck does that mean?
That's like really what I struggle with.
Yeah, the abbreviations. Anytime that I read an abbreviation, as you may have seen, I read the whole thing in my head. So that's another way that I keep getting it through. That's why for loops were so hard for me to get my head around for a second, because I was like, for what? For what? While and if makes sense, but for what? So once I broke it down a little bit like that, for loops are just while loops.
Yeah.
They're just a little bit more organized. Are you ready?
Or the else if.
Or the else if, exactly.
It's crazy.
Yeah, she's got food.
Okay. Can you hear me? No, just wait. You're good. I got it. Let's go. Okay, so let's take a look at. Okay, I don't need that. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what the code is. So we've got 4 declarations. I did A, B, C, D, because it's just easy like that. And like I said before, we've got our loops that we want to happen. We've got A, which is going to be the first one. You can see it will only go up to 2. B for the second one, which will go up to 9. And then we've got this if, whoa, I just realized I'm not on it. We got this if statement, which we'll go over in just a second. Yeah.
I found these in the cabinet.
Oh, those do not.
Everybody has to try them with me.
No.
I've already had them. I have them in stock from Costco. Those are delicious.
The seaweed?
Seaweed,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, it's seaweed.
Excuse me.
My son can still stuff. I taste it.
You gonna try with me?
Seaweed's. Oh, it's dry seaweed. Oh, if it's dry seaweed, I definitely want some. Yes, thank you.
In the cabinet from whatever the thing is called.
It's so sweet. I thought it was wet seaweed. I was like, I don't know about that.
Oh my god.
It's so good.
Sriracha
See,
mayo.
I can do seaweed like in sushi.
Mm-hmm.
Like seaweed snacks.
They're like salty and sweet at the same time. But it does taste like
Lived in
your.
Hawaii. It smells like the ocean.
Definitely.
It tastes like surfing. Fuck all this. Let's go.
Oh, just as I shoved that whole thing in my mouth. Give me 1 second. Okay. So we'll go over this if statement in just a second. We've got our other 2 that we're thinking about as well, which is the 10, this 0 right here, whatever you call that one, and then the last digit of that too. So this if statement at here is what stops it from ticking over into the realm that you don't want it to be. Because like we said, we only want it to go up to 2359, and of course we don't want the second one, which is this, in order to go past. Because it's going to have to hit 9 at least once, but you don't want it to hit 9 again afterwards. So that's why we got this if statement. So this if statement, this double line right here means or. So if this is true or this is true, that means everything within the curly brackets is going to happen. If it is not, then things are not going to happen. Yes?
Why don't I feel like somewhere I saw an and with an apostrophe?
And an apostrophe.
But not apostrophe. Exclamation point.
The exclamation point makes the statement negative. So if you were to have exclamation point equal, that means it is not equal. So let's say that's, yeah, you got that. All right, awesome. So exclamation point means flip it, basically.
Okay.
So I like to use the whiteboard for this because, like I said before, we're going to have so many dudes holding on to information where it ticks it each time. So let's start with here. A equals 0, B equals 0, C equals 0, D equals 0. So we got 0, 0, 0, 0. 0, 0. If we look down here for put character, we have, it's going to put A, B, semicolon, then C, and then D. So it goes through and does the whole thing and prints 0, 0. Now it's going to go through it again.
Oh, they're in the cabinet.
So since we are now all the way down into here, we know that this loop's going to keep happening until this is no longer true. So it's going to go 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6, until it gets up to 9. Now once it's 9, this guy's going to come up and say, hey, I have a 10. And it's like, actually, I'm not looking for a 10. So this stops. So once this stops, that's when this comes into play, this increment. If we remember before, with a for loop, once you can't actually see the bottom of it, and I realize that's probably a really bad thing that I did, but pretend that there's a bunch of curly brackets down here going downwards. Let me cap this before I accidentally write on the screen, because I'm already writing on myself.
You were making me nervous.
Yeah, good. So we have now put down all the way up to 9 now. This is no longer true, so this is actually now at the end of this. I'm about to burp, sorry. And we're going to increase it by 1. So now C equals 1, and if we go down here again, D equals 0 again, because it's starting this all the way over again. It's because this loop has finished. It went all the way up to 9, and it's done. So every integer that was stated before does not exist because it doesn't state it anywhere beyond that. So it loops back up. Sorry, loops back up again, does this another 9 times, and then once that is done, it's going to tick this up to number 2. Do it again, and then 3, then do it again, and now we're getting over to the hour. And this is where this if statement becomes important. So if A is less than or equal to 1, and B is less than or equal to 9, then this is going to happen. And then we also have or if A is less than or equal to 2 and B is less than or equal to 3. This is to make sure, stop tapping on that. This is to make sure that we do not hit 9 twice for variable B. So if we remember, variable B is this one right here, because we're going to want it to go up to hour 9, but not hour 29, because that doesn't exist. In fact, we want it to only go up to 23, which is why if this first one is 2, less than or equal to 2, and this is less than or equal to 3, then this is going to happen. If that is not the case, that means this stuff is not going to happen, and then once that does not happen, this increment will happen again. So think about it as the nesting Russian dolls. Get it? Going, and then going, and then going. And it was really freaking hard to figure this one out. I had like my tablet and everything, thinking about like, okay, so then when this happens, what happens next? And you want to think about what you want the code to do. That's why I like to put that within its boxes, because we're going to want this to go up, 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 and then back to 0 again. Up, 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 up with the next one. So it's almost like adding 1 the whole time. And then how do you make that happen? So it was definitely very complicated, and I did have to use some Google in order to figure this out. But that is basically what this times one is like. I really liked this one because it thinks about the nesting loops very seriously. And with your code, you're not gonna just type this out and it's gonna be done. You're gonna have so many different little things. This is why I really recommend for you to grab the main file that they state over here, this 8 main, this entire thing, copy it over to your code, call it the same thing. At the very top of our projects is the put character code. When it says you can only use _ put character, if you click on that put character, it brings that code up to you as well. So copy that code. I know, well I didn't know it was a link until,
Not even halfway, like I was at the beginning.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's going on.
so I totally recommend doing both of those because you're going to,
Or ice, or whatever it was.
yeah, because you're going to be trying your code
Sarah,
10 times before it ends up being right. You're going to forget about the semicolon. You're going to be like, oh, this is actually going up to 24 instead of 23, and it's going to keep happening, and then you're going to keep coming across different problems, and then you just need to find the answer to that block. Try your best attempt. Don't try to do it all in your first time. Try your best attempt, run your code, and see what happens. For me, with the alphabet one, I had it continuously print A all the way until I did Control-C to make it stop. I'm like, okay, well that's not supposed to happen. Why did that happen?
Mine did like in, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L. I was
See, you're like, what? So why did that happen? And then that's when you look at your code, you think about what your objectives are, what your restrictions are.
my objective to get my stuff finished on time. Finally.
Well, exactly. Well, that's what this is for. To help you get it done on time, and also so you can inch along what coding really is, instead of you're like, whoa, here goes the deep end, and you're like drowning in stuff because you're full of symbols and characters and terminology, and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, we're freaking out on one.
Freaking out, exactly.
Because you spent the past 4 days trying to figure this out. And
Exactly. So that's why I highly recommend try your best attempt. Maybe even just try to do the first digit. Try to make it go up to 9 and then go back to 0. All right, next one. Well, that's the next one's the last one. I know, this is the last one. So,
Oh no!
I know, you have to imagine them in your head now. So this is what the times table problem was, and I can go through this one a little bit faster, but I'll go over the main problems with this one that I ended up happening.
This is the last one. What do you mean? That's all you have?
That's all I have. I went through 6 problems. I went through 6 problems, and then 2 of the hardest ones from the previous one. This should help you with your next assignment. Because once again, Google is your friend. Google is awesome. Don't try to find the answer to the problem. Try to find an answer to why your certain Lego block is not working. You're like, okay, why does it keep repeating? So here's my code. Why does it keep repeating? Plug it in to Google, and Google will try to find it out. Google will probably say, hey, it's actually this thing, and you're like, no, it's not Google, so try to think of a different way to phrase it.
Yeah,
Using
sometimes
Google.
I hate Google.
Yeah, Google can be
I hate Google and Betty.
yes, and Betty,
I really hate Betty.
yeah,
Like a lot. Yeah.
and that's the other thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's for readability. It'll be very important when you
Betty
work with
Boop.
other coders, yeah.
Yeah.
It keeps everyone's uniqueness as a coder a little bit more in line, because if you go and read someone else's code, you're like, what?
But that's what comments are for.
Yeah,
Betty's just actively a bitch.
yeah. She goes, trailing white space, shut up.
Yeah, I know. I hate that.
Oh, by the way, you have a trailing white space. Yeah, like anyone can fucking see that. I don't care. Huh. I'm on the same page, but it is necessary. Yeah. Okay, so with this problem, it's a little bit interesting because this one,
I don't know what that means, but trail my once.
it means like you have like a tab after a curly bracket.
No, trail my white space.
Oh, got you. Okay, let's get through this.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the code. Like I said, we would have done this on its own, but yeah, it has 2 pages to it, so we'll just keep going back and forth. Okay, so our objective for this one is print the 9's timetable starting from 0. If we look at our problem, it gives us exactly what what it's looking for. If you guys did not know, the $sign at the end of that means a new line. It does not necessarily mean that it's there. So when it has the $sign at the end, yeah. And if you see at the very bottom, I cut it off a little bit, but it ends up taking your code and then any space that there's there turns it into a period so that you can kind of see where your spaces are supposed to be. If you see, if your number is single digit, you're going to need 2 spaces after it. If it's double digit, you're only going to need 1 space. So that is one of the biggest problems for this one is when do you put 2 spaces, comma 2 spaces, and then 1 space, comma 1 space. So we've got our first one, our includer. We've got our lifeguard man. Just think about them. We see both of them are void, so that means we are not going to have something come in or push anything out except for actually printing it. So once again, that just means there's no return. Return will become a lot more important as we go forward as well. You'll just see when it gets to it. So for this one, we declared 5 different variables to make this happen. It was definitely very complicated. I ended up kind of finding the answer on this one. I just got lucky. But it is a little bit of a mouthful. So we've got our nested loops, and that's where it ends. Oh, and yes, and here's where the exclamation equal sign comes into play.
Why does not equal 0?
So if it does not equal 0,
Put char all that crap.
yep. And then if we go back, this is an if statement with an else. The else here means that it continues onwards. Yeah, it's kind of a hard one to explain. I was double thinking about putting this one in, but I mostly wanted to say that the biggest is looking at the problem the most. This is another thing that if you were to try it out yourself, you're going to notice the absence of the spaces at times. It's not going to line up perfectly the way it wants to. I should have just put this back to back. So we've got our loops again, got our for loops.
Hey, what's cat dashing?
Yes,
We know.
cat means to print everything, and that's why the
What's
$.
that mean?
Cat means to print what the answer is.
The dash E.
Oh, the dash E, I believe, has to do with the new line. So there's a $sign at the end of it. It's just showing you exactly where the new line is.
Okay, never mind.
I'm still not.
I keep distracting you, but go ahead.
No, it's fine. This is the last one, so. Yeah, so we want to increment it. Increment this. And we want x times y. And so this is what our problem is going to be. So when we go through, it's going to be 0 times 0, and then 0 times 1. Yes, 0 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then 1 times 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then by 2, and then by 3, and then by 4, and then by 5. So we definitely want that to happen. So we want it to go up and times a new number each time. So we times it by 1, times it by 2, times it by 3. So that's what the z ends up equaling. It ends up equaling whatever the times table is going to be being. If z is greater than 9, yes, which has to do with the double digits. If z is greater than 9, then u, which we ended up doing for, yeah.
Last number of C.
Last number of z, and that is z minus u. Like I said, I found this one online. I thought I had exactly how I thought about this. I really hate that I did it like this. I think I might just have to cut it there because I ended up losing what I was thinking of. But if we see down here, this is where it becomes only one space. So up here, it's saying that this has a double digit and such. It'll do comma, one space. Down here, if it is a single digit, they'll do comma and then double space as well, all the way down here to new line. I'm sorry that one's not as explanatory, but yeah. So thank you all for listening. Are there any other questions about it? No, sorry. I have my own. I still have to do the last project, so. I already did the first one, so I think I'll just get that one done today. But that is how you address a C problem, and that's how you, whoopsies. That's how you address a C problem and how to sort of pull yourself out of your own brain and think about it as the simplicity as it really is. It's complicated, but it is simple.
One takeaway I got
Yes.
is how you said that you search for the answers for that block.
Uh-huh.
I think it's going to help me out.
Yes. Once when I started the code.
For the end, like trying to figure out the answer as a whole. Just separate it out into those little blocks.
Yep. Take your first stab at the code. Even do just half of it. Just know that, like with the 24 one, try to make it go up to 59 and then go back to 0 again. And then you can fuck around with the hours afterwards. So I always recommend take the file that it asks for. It tells you exactly what it does in order to compile it as well. If you just copy that whole damn thing and then put it into your code, all of those minus signs are different ways of checking for errors. So if there is an error, it will tell you. So run that compiler. It will tell you what the problem is. And run Betty, because she'll tell you what the problem is too.
GCC with the code too.
Yeah, so with GCC, so this is GCC with some extra checkers along with it. And it also includes 2 other programs, which is the put character program and the main program that they have created for you. So you have your own main header, which is,
That make those things work.
that makes those things work. So we've got our include main.h, which is the header file that we created. Now they have main.c, which is something completely different. It's a little bit of code that they use to access your code. So with this project right now, this was just a problem for me. At the very end of the first project, it asks you to make your own prototype. You have to make a main. INT main has to exist in a C program. They make it your own, but in this program, there was one of them that they did not include a main file. You have to make it your own. You have to call it main. It was for the FizzBuzz one. There's a FizzBuzz one.
Yeah, FizzBuzz.
So I tried to do INT FizzBuzzer, and then void at the end of it. But no, it needs to be INT main. If there's no main file, it does not work. And it was yelling at me too. I put it in the group chat, so it was yelling at me for that reason. So, takeaway, Google your blocks, not the problem. Think about it in simple ways. Each symbol means something. Each symbol means something. So try to understand what those mean. If you try to understand each individual block, it is much easier than understanding the whole damn tower. So if you got that Jenga tower, and you're like, damn, that's a lot of blocks. Just take one away, take a look at it, see why it fit. Like I said, Legos, you've got like, maybe there's little, whatever, the pins on the right side, but not on the left side, so it's gotta connect on the right side, right? So, take those away. Google is your friend. It is your bestie. She's a bitch, but she's still your bestie.
I found with Google sometimes that it will give a lot of incorrect.
Whoa, that was close. I saw that. Yeah.
Ways to like put your code together.
Exactly. So.
Especially if you're doing like
Exactly.
U.com, YOU.com. It's a search engine just like Google, but it's got a lot better answers.
I'm gonna try it. You.com.
Now, nothing against Google. It is, of course, my best friend and personal savior.
Yeah, Google for my personal stuff is awesome. But for school, it's really,
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Well, I'm done, so you are good to go. Absolutely. Thank you. Yep. Class dismissed. Oh my God, please.
Thanks so much, Piper. This was awesome.
Yay, good. I'm glad. Good. And good. I'm so glad. I really wanted everyone to catch up.
Let me know when you're ready to go for that.
Yeah. I'll let you know. Let me make sure the coding, the recording happened. I
I can't believe you got lucky. Were able to slip in on that last or second to last question. I got lucky, and it's kind of a mouthful right after each other.
Yeah.
Without anybody noticing.
Fuck me.
That was impressive.
Good. I am glad. Ooh. Oh, okay. I think we are good. So, hold on. Let me open this.
That wasn't recorded, was it?
No, that part wasn't.
Okay, cool.
Here's the... Aha! Yep, that was about 30 minutes. Yeah. So let's take this file. Get me out. Put it in micro. Stop. Whoop. Oh, that's the video. Pause it. Oh.
So what I just